Hey, my name is Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life. Istanbul was Constantinople, and even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Things change. That's the way of the world, and change is difficult. Maybe that's why I love remote wilderness areas that at least give an impression of things that don't change. This is one of those videos I wanted to make while knowing it's not going to be good enough. Let me explain. This is Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness in North Carolina. Over 17,000 acres of, oh my goodness, this is an amazing kind of wilderness. But in this video, we're focusing on 6,000 acres of old-growth trees, one of the largest tracts in the United States east of the Mississippi. It's named after Joyce Kilmer, author of the famous poem, Trees.
I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast, a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
Joyce Kilmer was considered the leading American Roman Catholic poet and lecturer of his generation. He was deployed in World War I, and sadly, he was killed by a sniper. This wilderness was named in honor of Kilmer and his love for trees. Along Santee-Law Creek is a rare example of an old-growth cove hardwood forest. This is an extremely diverse forest in the Appalachian Mountains. What makes these trees even more special is that many of the trees in Joyce Kilmer are over 400 years old. But this moment wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't planned, and that was a mistake. We were on our way back to Virginia from Chattanooga by way of the Cherohala Skyway, so we were taking the long way home. The really long way. We really enjoyed the trip across the Skyway, but when we departed and began approaching Robbinsville, I saw the sign for Joyce Kilmer and we had to stop. Now this is the second time this has happened. I've included Joyce Kilmer Wilderness in one of my videos a few years ago, but it was an afterthought. But this time I was convinced that I had enough time to hike the short loop around these amazing trees and make a video that captures the essence of a very special place. But as I started up the trail, I learned that the short loop was closed. I didn't have enough time to hike all of the other trail, so I did my best to capture what I could. This isn't the type of place you can treat like an afterthought. I was thinking then, like I'm thinking now, why haven't I set out to spend an entire day here to make a video? Because you need time here. You have to plan. And by plan, I mean being prepared for anything. It rains and storms a lot here. It gets really muddy.
Providing some kind of scale is kind of difficult. Like, how do you know that these trees are as big as they are when you're watching this video? I've tried to provide some type of visual aid throughout this video to show you what a normal tree looks like one you would see in an average forest here in the Appalachian Mountains, or maybe even in your backyard, versus these huge trees. It's just amazing. A few things you need to know, first of all, about coming to Joyce Kilmer. You need to come here. This place is amazing. If you love hiking, there's no place better to hike. However, a little bit of word of warning. This is a very soupy, wet, muddy place. The trail that most people use, it's just a couple of miles, no big deal. Well, it washed out because of rain. They get a lot of rain here. Part of the reason why the forest is so healthy is because there's plenty of rain. because there is so much water here, the mosquitoes will carry you out. So an insect repellent here is a must. It's not just a good idea unless you're one of those crazy people that mosquitoes just never touch you. You ever meet those people? They never touch them at all. They never get bitten by mosquitoes. Well, unless you're one of those people, you better bring a lot of insect repellent. You know, you're still in the South, so it's going to wash off, so you want to bring enough to reapply while you're walking. When you're walking the trail, isn't hard. I mean, I've seen a lot of people here in their 60s and 70s walking, but it is uphill and it's humid, so you want to bring plenty of water. Now I realize that I'm a skinny individual. You know that from watching all my videos.
Say what?
But to give you some kind of reference as to how big some of these trees are, would you look at this? This thing is huge. I mean huge. When it comes to east of the Mississippi, the Appalachian Mountains, trees don't get any bigger or any older than here in Joyce Kilmer. It's phenomenal.
Okay, that's not entirely true. Every now and then while editing a video, I'll hear something I'm saying in the video and think, I better clarify that statement. And to be honest, the longer I make videos about the biggest ball of twine or national and state parks, the more cautious I am about saying something is the biggest or the oldest. The more places we visit, the more I realize that saying something is the biggest or the best is a good way to attract tourists, so you have to read the fine print. Let me be clear, Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness does not make the claim that the trees here are the biggest and the oldest. So I guess this is an example of me saying one thing but meaning something else. Instead of expecting you to read my mind in that last segment, let me explain why Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness is so unique. For a long time, this amazing tree in South Carolina, the angel oak tree, was celebrated as the oldest tree east of the Mississippi. It was originally estimated to be 1,400 years old, but that's debatable. Some researchers claim it's only around 500 years old. These days, researchers are now claiming that this stand of bald cypress trees in North Carolina along the Black River are close to 2,000 years old. By the way, real quick, the term stand is a community of trees in an area ranging from a few acres to several hundred acres. These trees would be uniform in composition, structure, age, size, class, distribution, and so on that distinguishes it from adjacent communities. So you can think of a large forest as a collection of stands. Anyway, Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness is one of the largest and most impressive contiguous tracts of old-growth forest in the eastern United States, and it contains examples of more than 100 tree species. And as I mentioned earlier, many of the trees are over 400 years old, more than 20 feet in circumference, and 100 feet tall. What distinguishes Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness from the biggest and oldest list is its diversity. Now, I'm using a little creative license when I say this, but walking through this forest gives us an idea of what it would have been like walking through forest in North America before colonization, industrialization, and logging. Now, that's not to say that there aren't larger trees in the Appalachian Mountains. There are examples of trees on private property that might even be bigger than these trees. In fact, it's possible that you have a few trees in your own yard that are as big. I've even made videos in national parks all over the Appalachian Mountains where I show a single tree either as big or almost as big as the trees here in Joyce Kilmer. But these are isolated examples and do not represent the local stand or the forest. Furthermore, since the 90s, researchers have been able to identify over 116,000 acres throughout the entire Appalachian mountain chain that were spared the axe in the 19th and 20th century. But many of these locations aren't accessible to the general public. Joyce Kilmer-Slickrock Wilderness is accessible, and it provides the very best example of an old-growth forest.
And sadly, the trees that I'm showing you in this video, the giant trees, well, they're not even the biggest here.
But what do you do? I love trees, and these might be considered some of the best trees in North America. They're giants. These trees survived logging during the fastest expansion of any nation, not to mention forest fires, disease, drought, and now tourism. But I realize the video I'm recording, the video you're watching now, isn't enough. It doesn't tell the story, not the way I want to tell it, and not the way you should see it. This isn't the video I wanted to make, it's the video I felt like I had to make, because how can you drive by a place like this and not want to walk among living giants? No, I'm not capturing the best of what this wilderness offers, not even close. But I wanted to show you something larger than life life tucked away here in the Unicoi Mountains, the most underdeveloped mountain region in the U.S. Even if it's not good enough, maybe you can capture a glimpse of what's hidden here deep in one of my favorite Appalachian mountain chains. Carolyn and I are fortunate enough to travel all over the U.S., but most of the time it's here in the Appalachian Mountains. Of all the wilderness areas we visit, most of the time West Virginia wilderness areas win the prize for being the most remote and isolated. The exception to that rule is here in the Unicoi Mountains. If you love the mountains, you have your favorite mountain chain. The Unicoi Mountains are my favorite. I practically grew up in these mountains. Not here, but about 30 miles across the Unicoi Crest in Tennessee. There's about 1,000 square miles of these mountains, and they stretch out close to 40 miles. This region is rich with rivers and streams, creeks, and man-made lakes, and the Unicoi Mountains are a part of the greater Appalachian mountain chain, and they're tall and majestic and still so very isolated compared to the surrounding mountain chains of the southern Appalachian Mountains. Just north of here, Great Smoky Mountain National Park receives 12 million visitors a year. It's the most visited national park in the U.S. While the Unicoi Mountains, particularly Cherohala National Forest, receives quite a few visitors in the summer months, these mountains are usually a second option or afterthought for mountain vacationers. Don't get me wrong, folks in the surrounding regions know all about this area and are well aware of its beauty, but it doesn't get the same press as Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, or Cherokee. I love the Smoky Mountains, but something can be found here that can't be found in any other mountain chain. These trails and other trails in the Unicoi provide access to an ancient world when giants dominated the landscape.
Another thing is that you're going to be walking with a lot of people on the trail. In fact, one of the reasons why I had to choose this particular shot, it was kind of the only shot I could get because of the traffic with one of these giants, you know, kind of in the background. It's kind of crowded, and every time that Carol and I have been here, whether it was just us or with the kids, we never quite make it through the entire area because it's crowded, and we just simply run out of time, which I've done again today. I'm out of time. So you can expect there to be a lot of people here, but it's a nice place. There's places to picnic, there are restrooms, there's just a lot going on. We'll have to plan a trip just for Joyce Kilmer in a future video. But it's a nice excursion, and I highly recommend it. I mean, this is worth the trip over here. This is worth the Cherohala Skyway, in my opinion. If you love trees and you live on the East Coast, if you live anywhere in the Appalachian Mountains, why haven't you been here yet? This place is awesome.
I love this place because I love trees, and these trees feel timeless. And speaking of eternity, did you know that at least one tree is mentioned in heaven? And he showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of God and of the Lamb in the middle of its street. And on either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. There will no longer be any curse, and the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his bondservants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. And there will no longer be any night, and they will not have any need of the light of the lamp nor the light of the sun, because the Lord God will illuminate them, and they will reign forever and ever. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. My name is Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life. If you like this video, you'll probably enjoy these videos too.